Good evening, good morning. Welcome to week 3 of PADM 401 here at Penn State Homeland Security at their World Campus. I just want to, again, weekly YouTube updates that review the past week, cover future weeks, and discuss announcements. So starting off with announcements, Paper 1 topics. A lot of you have sent me potential topics for Paper 1. If you haven't, please just send me a couple of sentences on what your topic is going to be. And again, I want you to start thinking about these topics early so I can provide a little bit of guidance from here on in. And again, I think I've responded to everyone who's requested guidance on their paper topic. So just move on forward with that. And again, if there's questions, please let me know. Just key dates coming up. Paper 1 is due, again, 12 June. I know that seems like a lot of time from here, but it really is not. That is a week from Sunday. I will not be, if there's issues, let me know, but I'm not going to be very generous on extensions because you've known this ahead of time. So paper 1 is due 11:59 p.m. on 12 June. So again, just keep that in mind. And then the FEMA course is due June 26th. Again, it's not very hard. Just do it online. It'll take you a couple hours max, and then you take an exam at the end. And that's due, again, 26th June. And those are free points right there. It's not something that, unless you screw up, you're not gonna get full credit. So keep those key dates in mind. Potential paper topics. And again, from what I've received, I think I've trying to hit just kind of the high points, not all of them, but some of the papers can be grouped in the following category. TSA, a lot of questions on TSA, a lot of issues with TSA. The questions usually deal with wait times and effectiveness. Again, that's a perfectly logical paper. And you can also bring in the risk issues and the trade-offs in liberty, if you want to call it liberty, vice efficiency. If you've had to miss your flight, I don't know if you want to call that liberty, but it's certainly an inconvenience for you, and that's a good topic. Is the TSA effective? Are we getting our dollars worth of it? Is the watch listing operations, the no-fly list brought by the TSA, is that constitutional? These are all different paper topics that can be brought up related to transportation security. And again, TSA is in the news of late, and that might be there might be plenty to choose from there. But again, I want you to not just do a paper on the TSA. I want you to choose an angle with the TSA that you can go in depth. So a lot of issues on TSA. A lot of issues on trade-off. Snowden, kind of two parts. The NSA bulk collection, as well as the FBI and what happened between FBI and San Bernardino and the iPhone that was the FBI couldn't hack into. And does the federal government can they compel a private company to give out key data? I will tell you right now, the government all the time compels private companies to do things in the name of law enforcement. They can, with a warrant, of course, they can go into a bank safe and say, you're going to open this bank safe up. There are precedents that say that the federal government can compel private companies to do things. The Apple iPhone issue is certainly worthy of bringing up. The other issue, again, the Snowden bulk collection, and there's a lot just based on your discussion sections that I read for week 2. I think there's some misnomers with bulk collection. And again, I should caveat this. I fall into one category that the bulk collection, NSA bulk collection, is a worthy endeavor. So I should preface that. I think there's anomalies that saying we're listening in on people and that the government is collecting massive amounts of unauthorized conversations. That's not what's going on. What's going on is that they're taking the metadata, which is what you'd see when you get your Verizon phone bill. It says, who you called, at what time you call. Now you can do exactly where you were. Some of you might have kids old enough where you want to know where they're making their phone calls from. The phone companies have that information and give you that information on your bill. What the metadata would allow an Intel analyst to do is it would allow them, if there is a phone collected in a cave in Yemen and you want to connect, okay, who did they call? Well, then instead of going to the phone company and asking them for records, the NSA would have that information instantaneously. Whether you want to say that's a violation of rights or not, that's up to you. But again, the information collected is not much different than what you see in your phone bill. And there's a lot of questions. Okay, we'll let the phone company store that information, and the government can tap into that or coordinate with the phone companies, I should say. But that brings up very constitutional issues, and it brings up that trade-off between privacy and civil liberties that we talked about here. The other thing I just want to bring up with the Snowden piece, and I know I'm harping on this because I've worked with these issues personally. The fact that we do this, the NSA does this and collects and make sure and checks email and all those things, and actually does that type of intelligence collection, that makes our adversary's job much harder. Osama bin Laden, if he wanted to conduct an attack, he couldn't just Skype with 9 people from Abbottabad or do a Google Hangouts and coordinate his message. The fact that he knows that we're listening and we have that capability forces him to use a very inefficient, cumbersome courier system right from the 19th century. That makes your job as a terrorist a lot more difficult to plan and a lot more difficult to do what a terrorist needs to be doing. So just before we knock on the NSA, and there's plenty of reasons to knock on the NSA, I just want to give those caveats up front. Visa program. Some people talked about this. Again, the San Bernardino case brought up issues with visas. People who overstay their visas, people who are on student visas. How do we track them? How do we monitor them? And again, these are not U.S. citizens. Some of them might be U.S. persons, but they're not U.S. citizens, and they don't get the same constitutional rights that a citizen would. So if someone is here on a student visa, on a work visa, should we have more monitoring to make sure that they go home when they're supposed to be, when they're students, they're engaging in normal student activity? What level do we do that on? What numbers are we talking about? So that's people brought those issues up. And then I'm going to say this, no one brought this up, and I want to talk about this because this is definitely a constitutional issue. You might hear this argument that you have the right to free speech. Everyone has a right to a constitutional right of free speech, but you can't cry fire in a movie theater because you can't induce a panic. You can't cause people to die in a movie theater when there's no fire because you cried fire. There is a constitutional limit, or there is a legal limit on your constitutional right to free speech. I can't just publish libel out there that causes harm to people. I can't just accuse my neighbor of being a abusive child molester. There are limits to my free speech. The question I want to bring up is when we had Ebola back a few years, or any other biological threat or some sort of consequence management threat. Can the Constitution or can the authorities limit free speech? I will give you an example, and I should caveat this as well. I do not like Donald Trump. I shudder at the thought of Donald Trump becoming president, and if that explains a partisan bias, I apologize, but I should caveat that. But during the Ebola crisis, Donald Trump set out tweets that might have engaged in mass panic. And if you watch the documentary I sent out, you will see those tweets be published and the impact of those tweets on Ebola. Can the government clamp down on that. Is he crying fire in a movie theater? If a guy in a hurricane starts saying, "Hey, we're all gonna die," and causes mass panic, and because we can't get to people in nursing homes and evacuate people properly because of a mass panic induced by some media outlet, can we arrest that person? That is an excellent paper topic, and that is an excellent analysis or argument for balancing constitutional rights and liberties. So again, thanks for the paper topics. Again, keep them going if you haven't sent them to me, and I will definitely comment on them. So week 3, again, every module for the summer session is going to have a different week. So module 3, week 3, this deals with the massive Homeland Security bureaucracy, the reorganization of the federal government to have an actual Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Homeland Security and the integration of 22 odd agencies, from the Coast Guard to immigration to transportation security, reorganizing those. And we'll talk about the Homeland Security Act of 2002. What were the positives? What were the negatives? What were the trade-offs? And that's what this paper or this module is going to deal with. And again, this was called for even before 9/11. There was a request for a Department of Homeland Security, and then this was reiterated in the 9/11 Commission, reiterated in other forms that we needed this. But I think there's a lot of buyer's remorse on this, and you'll see it in this topic this week. Just one of the issues and fissures. The big issue that came up, and I'll give you a vignette. There's other ones in the lesson, but in this reorganization of Homeland Security, FEMA, which is the disaster relief organization, it went from essentially a cabinet level agency that had access to a president to a sub-cabinet agency that was under the Homeland Security. So there's another layer of bureaucracy between the FEMA director and the president. Arguably, this additional layer led FEMA to become not as effective and therefore fall down on the job when it came to Hurricane Katrina. That's one argument. You can make the other argument that different other agencies, whether they're the Secret Service, we know all the problems of the last couple of years related to the Secret Service because it lost its essentially direct access to the senior administration and had to go through now Homeland Security. It lost its effectiveness. Again, that's another issue with when you amalgamate all these agencies into one. So that's the question to ask: did these agencies lose effectiveness when they're amalgamated into the Department of Homeland Security? And then the question again asked, and this goes to the discussion section, despite this reorganization, whether it's the Homeland Security or even the intelligence bureaucracy or our counterterrorism bureaucracy, why have we continued to, lack of a better term, drop the ball? Why do we still have intelligence failure related to Boston bombing, to the Christmas Day plot, to the Fort Hood shooting? Unfortunately, I have to say the first Fort Hood shooting in 2009, because there was a subsequent one in, I think, 2014. So despite, again, this massive reorganization in our bureaucracy, why do we still have these issues? So that's food to think about when you're going through this lesson this week. I know I'm a little bit late, but I wanted to wish you all a happy Memorial Day, or at least a wish you well on Memorial Day. I don't know if it's very happy for those who might have served in the military and lost friends and colleagues. So I just wanted to recognize that as well. So if there's any questions or issues, please let me know, and I look forward to your paper talk.